Your college football game day has come early.
Goes down the field for Sicky, goes up high. He's got get away from the top speed, and the ball is free. Woo! What a hit! You got barbecue back there.
From underdog triumphs to powerhouse showdowns, we've got your winning playbook covered. It's BetQLU with Chris Mack, RJ Choppy, and John Martin, presented by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
And we have made it. We are here, officially ready to go for another edition of BetQLU. Happy weekend to you. Live across the BetQL network every Friday night and Saturday morning. Always available to you in podcast form inside your free Odyssey app, AUDACY. Download it today, or wherever you get your podcasts for that matter, on the YouTube Odyssey Sports channel as well. Alongside my friends RJ Choppy and John Martin, I'm Chris Mack. Welcome in to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Lots of hoops we could talk about today, but some news and, of course, a national championship game now set in college football. Guys, we were in a little bit of a weird time warp for last week's episode because it was Friday night, but it was kind of as the games were being played, and we were in the middle of all of it. And so we didn't get a chance to react yet to the semifinals. Notre Dame beating Penn State, Ohio State taking care of Texas. So let's start there with a look back. Notre Dame covers against Penn State, wins on the money line. Ohio State, that one ended up closing with Penn State as a 1-point favorite, which it sat all week with Notre Dame as about a 1.5 favorite. Ohio State takes care of business, covers the 6 against Texas. Favorites now 9-1 against the spread and straight up in the CFP. They will be meeting this week, the committee, to talk about any changes they may make. We've talked about that stuff plenty. We imagine there may be a change or two, a wrinkle or two to iron out as far as seeding goes. Let's talk about this year's 2 semifinals specifically, John. We were this close to getting a Big Ten rematch, but Drew Aller ends up playing a terrible ball game for Penn State, and we were this close. Texas was on the doorstep to sending things to overtime, you would presume, at the very least, against Ohio State before Steve Sarkisian forgot how to call plays down inside the 5. Who do you look at with a little bit more responsibility for their team's specific loss? Drew Aller on Penn State, Sark on the Texas side. Anywhere else we should be throwing blame around today?
No, I mean, that's a hell of a question. And I could, listen to both sides of it. I don't know. I think probably because of the coin flippish nature of the game itself, I would probably say Drew Aller deserves a little bit more. I mean, just because the time and situation, right? Like, you don't have to necessarily be so aggressive there. You could take the game to overtime. You have the potential and the ability to do that. Whereas, Texas was kind of behind the sticks all night long. They're just trying whatever they can to, slip past this Ohio State defensive line. Although, again, I thought Sark had a horrible game. Thought he didn't play Arch nearly as much as he should have. Thought Quinn had a bad game overall. But I just say, like, because the Notre Dame Penn State game felt much more like a coin flip, and that decision cost Penn State in a very real, because Ohio State still would have had time, right? They would have still had a ton of time to go down the field and score a game-winning field goal or maybe even a touchdown. So even if they score, that doesn't really change anything or seal it by any stretch of the imagination. Drew Aller lost the game for Penn State. So unfortunately, I think, the blame game, I think the winner of that is going to be Drew Aller.
Yeah, it's Drew Aller. I mean, as the kids would say, he was booty cheeks in this game. That's what he was. He completed the same amount of passes.
So in touch with the youth, RJ Choppy.
That's right, man. That's what happens, right?
It's like Steve Buscemi walking around the corner. Hello, my fellow youth.
That's right. What's happening, kids? Big goals.
Booty cheeks. Hold on, John. John, you muted
John
yourself
muted
somehow.
John muted himself there. I don't know what's going on.
Look what your booty cheeks did, Choppy.
Oh, man.
Your booty cheeks comment cost John his
He's
microphone.
still gone. We still
It's
can't hear
lost.
him.
It's done.
He's gone. He's gone. We don't know what he's thinking right now. But I mean, he completed the same amount of passes to wide receivers in that game as I did. I mean, that's pretty much where it starts and stops. And we've seen we saw this with Justin Herbert in the NFL this past week, where the only players to catch multiple passes from him was Ladd McConkey and his tight end and Derek Singletary. Like it was it. That was it. Which is a Houston defensive back. So it was a tough day for Aller. But I mean, at the end of the day, Notre Dame's defense is still pretty good. It's not like it's a trash defense. It's a pretty good defense. And Penn State, I mean, they had it. This game was lost in two spots. One, early on, they should have been up 14-0. And
but Aller again spikes it into the ground basically, or it throws it at Singleton's feet.
Absolutely. Right. No doubt about it. I was on the rollout, right? The rollout left and just dropped it in. And that was not a great pass. I mean, you've got to be better than that. And that's why he's not the player that Penn State had hoped he would progress into at this point.
Yeah, that's what's going to be something. He's coming back. Katron Allen and Nick Singleton are coming back. Deny Dennis Sutton on the other side of the ball. Penn State will have a bunch of guys putting the band back together next year. They'll see if they can capitalize on that. Because Aller all year was not the kind of quarterback that would make stupid mistakes like that to throw back across his body and into the middle of the field. Maybe it's the ultimate learning lesson, and they take something from it and get another crack at it next year, like I said, with all those players coming back. Sark was the one that why you're running a toss pitch from the 2-yard line when you've got 4 chances. Just shove that thing up the middle, and if you got to go tush push on it, whatever you got to do, like John mentioned, Choppy, they don't bring Arch in that situation either. Yeah. I mean, a million different things you could have tried that weren't that call in particular that dropped you back 6-7 yards.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, being in Texas, the fan base here, the Texas fan base is strange. Like the Cowboys fan base blames the coach regardless. That's the default. The Texas fan base blames the quarterback. And they generally give the coach a pass, except in basketball. Then they blame the coach. But, more people this week have been angry at Quinn than Sark. That they should have scored more than 14 points to that point. Forgetting that Ohio State's defense is really, really good and loaded with first-round players. And, they're on the 1-yard line. So that's 21 points. When you're on the 1-yard line, I instantly put that as that. I count that, right? It's got to get 1 yard. You've got to use Arch. You've got to just run up the middle. You can't go into a pistol and then have a guy 3 more yards behind you. I mean, the running back was at the 8-9 yard line at that point. Like, what are you doing? Like, why would you go that far back to go 1 yard? Get up there, sneak it 4 times. Let's go.
Yeah, totally mismanaged. So here we are. We've arrived at the national championship game. It will be Ohio State, Notre Dame. We'll get into that one in just a couple of minutes. I mentioned news as well from the world of college football. It's a little college football / NFL news. The report out there this week in your neck of the woods there, Choppy, that Jerry Jones gave Deion a call now that Mike McCarthy is out. And credit to Deion, he played this about as down the middle as you can without bruising Jerry's ego and while still holding sway in Boulder. To hear from Jerry Jones is truly delightful, and it's intriguing. I love Jerry and believe in Jerry. After you hang up, process it, think about it, it's intriguing, but I love Boulder and everything there is about our team, the coaches, student body, and the community. With Dallas also now showing some interest in some other candidates, John, this smells to me like unless they're going to drop off a massive bag at Deion's front porch, that he's staying in Boulder.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think, yeah, you mentioned Deion's a sharp guy. I mean, he may have things he needs. He may have certain commitments he's looking for, that he can squeeze a little juice from this, for. So, I mean, look, the man who would know a little bit more about the process in Dallas, what their search is RJ, but it also makes sense. Like it feels credible to me. Like it's not just like a random, player in a random NFL team. I mean, Dion has a lot of history with that organization, and in that part of the country. So, I mean, I think while it could be used as leverage, I also think there's got to be some credibility to it as well.
All right. Well, how much time we got here?
5
to
minutes.
to explain this, I've got to give you a background. Like Jerry Jones wants one of two things. He either wants somebody with a tie to the organization or somebody that he can hire that he can take credit for discovering. Okay? He wants to find his Tom Landry. He's got an insecurity about everything, Jimmy Johnson, all that stuff. He wants to find his Tom Landry. Dion would become the face of the organization instantly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that plays with Jerry, but Jerry also is a businessman, and he knows that Dion brings in viewers. I don't know how realistic this is. There's a lot of reasons why. First off, and I mean, this is just the NFL. Like, they're going to interview Robert Saleh on Saturday, and then Leslie Frazier on Monday. The fact that they did that and they scheduled those two right off the bat, that is very Rooney Rule-ish, and that leads me to believe that Dion's not in the running, because if he was, either you wouldn't have needed to interview one of those two, or one of those two is really a legitimate candidate.
What about Kellen
it's
Moore?
A shame. What's that?
So does this pave the way for, okay, let's get the interviews out of the way, so to speak, that we need to get out of the way because Dion said no thanks, but no thanks. You can't pay me enough. And so, like you said, Saleh comes in, Frazier comes in, and then we find out on Tuesday or Wednesday that Kellen Moore's coming in, and that's done and signed by the time he doesn't leave town.
Right. Absolutely. And it's a crock, and we all see through it.
Mm-hmm.
We all see right through what they're doing. And every franchise does this.
New England did the same thing before they hired Vrabel.
We see right through it, man. Like, we're not stupid. But or Leslie Frazier and Robert Saleh are legitimate candidates, and they're just going through the process. And then they bring Dion in, and it's all in the up and up, and good for them, whatever. I truly don't know. Like, I think this is a lot of media hype. I do think, and what I've heard is that Jerry is running the show here now. Like, in the past, it was Steven. Steven was very big on Mike McCarthy. Steven was very big on, hey, Jerry, Dad, we're not drafting Johnny Manziel. We're taking Zach Martin. Steven's kind of taking the keys. Jerry's wrestled him back in this one. He's like, this might be my last coaching hire. I'm going to take it. All right. Okay. Now that kind of leads me to believe this could be a possibility.
If he's going out in a blaze of glory. He's going to throw that match behind him onto the jug of kerosene as he walks out and just have it blow up massively behind him. He's going to be Heath Ledger walking away from the hospital when it all goes down, Choppy.
Look, he really is. I mean, he's kind of already doing that now. Just ask me. I got Jerry stories for days, like, about this. I mean, it's crazy, right? But I do think that, like, at the end of the day, what is best for the football team is Deion Sanders what's best for the football team. And I mean, you can make a case that he's the leader of men, and that plays. I want Deion to stay in college. Professionally, I would love to come to the Cowboys. We interview him on Monday after every game. That'd be great. But, like, personally, like, as a Cowboys fan, like, or as a football fan, I think Deion is great leading 18, 19, 20-year-old men into young adulthood. I don't think there's enough of that in college football. It's too much win or loss and then get rid of him. I think Deion is enough of a father figure to a lot of people. I want him to stay in college. Like, I think he's better suited for that. I think the college players need that more than rich athletes need Deion Sanders at the NFL level.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch this play out, but I tend to agree with Choppy there, John, that Deion staying in Boulder is good for college football, and anything that's good for college football, I'm a fan of. College basketball to talk about. We'll do that before we get to our best bets when we wrap up the show in just a few moments, but we got a national championship game to get into here, gentlemen. Notre Dame, Ohio State. The spread, a big one for a championship game. Which side are we on? Do we like something on the total? We get knee-deep into Buckeyes and Irish next right here on BetQL.
You've been listening to BetQL, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose
13.
outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker,
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
sports handicapper Rob Brown,
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
cycling all the top plays,
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
and one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2, 3.
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose
13.
outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends, and it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun, but the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the
Let's get back to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
Live coast to coast on the BetQL network. Hope you're enjoying your weekend every Friday night and Saturday morning. I'm here alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin, Chris Mack with you on BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Don't forget, you can watch the show as well on the Odyssey Sports YouTube channel, and we're always available in podcast form inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY. More than a handful of big college hoops games to talk about before we wrap up. We'll get you our best bets as well. They may be all over the board. Maybe college hoops, maybe college football, maybe the NFL, now that they've arrived at the divisional round as well. But let's focus in, at least for the next few minutes, guys, on the national championship game. Number 6 Ohio State, or 6th-seeded Ohio State, against number 5 Notre Dame, laying 8.5, total at 45.5 to 46.5. That has moved up throughout the week, the total, which I kind of like, because I really think this comes down, I've been saying this all year when we've previewed games, John, comes down to which quarterback, when you've got two very good defenses like this as well, which quarterback is going to be forced into making a crucial mistake at the worst possible time. Hell, you could look at our semifinal games. You don't have to go back that far to see quarterbacks making crucial mistakes in the worst possible moments in each of those games, and that's how the Buckeyes and Irish got here. As much as I've hammered away at Will Howard all year, he has shown that he's just getting the job done. And you don't have to be spectacular when everyone else around you is spectacular, as Judkins and Henderson are, as his wide receivers are. And I think that leans me towards Ohio State. 8.5 is a big number, though.
It is. It's come down. With the open of 9.5, even. Yeah, the Notre Dame money has poured in, but I'll be anxious to see what that looks like over the weekend, to be totally honest with you, because stepping in front of this Ohio State train has been a big mistake in these playoffs, regardless of opponent. They have looked pretty dominant. And Notre Dame, although they are certainly worthy of the spot that they have occupied, I mean, when I think about their path, I think about getting a backup quarterback in Georgia who made just a devastating decision at the end of a half, and basically cost his team the game there with that strip sack fumble that set up and changed the game. I think about Drew Aller, who made a devastating decision at the end of a game. Is Notre Dame going to get that from Will Howard? Like, are they gonna be handed a decision like that turns into a game-winning field goal or a touchdown at the end of a half where you get the ball? I just don't see it. I mean, I think Notre Dame's been very fortunate with bad quarterback play or bad quarterback plays, and I just don't think they're going to get the same luck against Ohio State. So, as of now, I'm going to continue to wait and see where this number goes, but it would really only be Ohio State for me.
I agree. I would be on Ohio State. I am on Ohio State. Look, it's here's the thing. At the end of not at the end of the Texas game, like mid-third, Ohio State had outgained Texas about 2 to 2.5 yards per play. if you extrapolate that out over the course of an entire game, that's a 3-score difference.
Mm-hmm.
And now they wound up winning by 2 scores, but I mean, a couple minutes ago in the game, it was tied. So you know what I mean? It wasn't like it wasn't like it was a blowout on the scoreboard. Does Notre Dame beat Texas? I don't know. I don't know they do. But Ohio State, the numbers within the game showed they should have pulled away from Texas. So I think that they're not considerably better than Notre Dame, but enough better that I could see this easily being a 10-point margin at the end. So I like Ohio State here. I think they're the better team. Obviously, I mean they're going to have the best player on the field, probably on both sides of the ball. So I would take Notre Dame. Ohio State.
It's not going to get back up to this number, but if it got to 10, would you lay 10, Choppy, or do you have like a hard stop at like 9.5?
Yeah, I wouldn't go to 10. That's too much. My hard stop probably at 9.5. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I tend to come back around to this one, guys. And look, we talked about quarterback play. Both of these guys, Will Howard and Riley Leonard, have shown that they are capable enough. And capable, when you just use the word capable to describe a quarterback, it's like a backhanded compliment in this day and age.
Yeah.
Neither one of these guys is going to drag their offense kicking and screaming if everybody else is having a bad night up and down the field scoring points. They're going to do just enough to manage the game. And I think that's where I come back around on this one. And I look at the total. The total's up to 46.5 now. I love the under. Look, Ohio State gets a strip sack return for a touchdown late against Texas to get to 28. Notre Dame outside of the Penn State game was lighting up scoreboards most of the year, right? But unless they get a defensive play, that's how they've scored a ton of points this year on defense. They've blown games open on defense with pick sixes, returns on special teams like against Georgia. Unless Notre Dame gets some of those plays, I don't think they light up the scoreboard either. Like, I think this ends up being a 24, not even, 23-17 kind of game. It reeks of a low scoring game unless one of these two quarterbacks should make a massive mistake and it goes back the other way for 6, John.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Notre Dame has really shown us any evidence that they're capable of participating in a shootout. I refuse to believe it. I mean, I think the only way this goes over is if Ohio State scores 41. I mean, that feels like the path to me. Yeah. I don't feel like this is a 31-30 type of game at all. I mean, I just think Ohio State is going to be able to use. I mean, there's really like no weakness, and it kind of just makes you harken back to the fact that they were the number 2 probably all season long. In terms of their Sagarin ratings, whatever metric you want to use, then they lose to Michigan and everybody. Yeah, I'm coming out with all of it.
Yeah, John just found a USA Today from 1997 in an old hotel room somewhere, and he's going with Danny
UPI. What's their UPI rating?
I still go to Sagarin, man. He still updates.
What's their Football Writers of America rating? What do we got here, man? Let's see. What did 1968 Texas get ranked?
Oh, you unplugged yourself again, John. We started taking shots at Jeff Sagarin. I called him Danny Sagarin. We started taking shots at, is it Jeff Sagarin? We started taking shots at that guy, and all of a sudden, John got flustered again and got himself unplugged, and now he's going to have to reset all over again because we took shots at it. How old do you think Danny Sagarin is? Jeff Sagarin. What's his name, Choppy?
Jeff Sagarin. Jeff's been around a minute. Jeff's been around for a minute, man. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and let you guys just go at Sagarin like that. So.
Yeah.
You guys got. I mean, what do the kids use these days? What's the metric of choice?
You got to protect Sagarin, man. You got to protect him.
Jeff Sagarin's 77 years old. Is he still alive, or did they have like a ghostwriter at this point?
They stopped. I think they stopped his ranking.
He stopped doing it for a certain publication.
He still does it for John.
He still puts them up at his website.
He sends John an email every Sunday morning personally to him.
I didn't realize I was so old-fashioned.
You're supposed to be the young one here.
I know. I'm calling the damn phone book number for the temperature and time.
Where's Sagarin in the yellow pages, Choppy? I can't find him.
Where's the Casper Whitney ranking? What are we doing here? What's the Spalding football guy got?
Shout out to Sagarin, bro.
You had some kind of cogent point that you were trying to make, and we've just completely blown it up for the last 5 minutes.
I just didn't realize it was so controversial that anybody uses ratings, man. I thought he was still like you guys have phased him out like the RPI in college basketball, you know. But no, I mean the point is they've if not for that Michigan loss, they would have been number 1 or number 2, and you know they're kind of putting that on the field every single week now.
Yeah, I mean the Big Ten is going to be stacked at least at the top again. I would think. We mentioned Penn State bringing everybody back for the most part. Abdul Carter is going to the draft, obviously. Oregon will probably go out and find another one-and-done quarterback in the portal, I would think. Who knows what they've got cooking there. Indiana would, I think, be at least very competitive, if not on the border, on the edges of the playoff discussion again, although they'll have quarterback to figure out because Curtis Rourke is done. And we didn't even mention Ohio State. So, and then I would imagine an improving Michigan team because they can't get much worse than they were this year. You got 4 or 5 Big Ten teams again. And I know Paul Feinbaum's already ready to jump off the tallest building in Birmingham because if he's got to go 3 straight years without an SEC team in the national championship game, Choppy, he might just light himself on fire.
He might. But I mean, look, the SEC is in their own problems anyway right now. I mean, they're sitting there with, they got to watch. The SEC for the second straight year has to watch the title game. That's not easy.
Yeah.
That's not easy for this conference to have to deal with. And when was the last time the SEC went 2 years with, while watching the game? Was it 2000, 2001?
Yeah.
Watching Josh Heupel and Chris Weinke go to town?
I don't know. Ask Jeff Sagarin.
Michael Vick?
Jeff Sagarin would know.
And then 2001, watching Miami go with Nebraska. Like, is that the last time where they went 2 years without watching the title game? It's a tough spot. It's a tough spot for all the coaches to be in.
Balance of power shifting, John. Big Ten surpassing the SEC, or are we jumping the gun a little bit there?
Yeah, I mean, it's 1 year. I mean, I do think that the retirement of Saban certainly kind of tips the scales a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I have a default belief that the SEC is always going to be on top. I mean, they add Texas, they add Oklahoma. You would think at some point Oklahoma becomes a good job again. I mean, we've seen that potential before. So I'm not ready to seed it just yet. Although maybe it's closer than it's ever been, right, in the modern era. Yeah. And I think that's probably true.
We could talk more about this next week, Choppy, but it feels like the biggest lesson learned, but we could talk about conference hierarchy and stratification and all that. I think the biggest lesson learned when we look at the 2 teams that have arrived at the national championship game is it's old, it's cliche, it's cheesy, but defense can win championships still at the highest level of college football, as long as you have a capable quarterback who isn't going to turn the ball over more than you want him to, who's going to play carefully and responsibly and take advantage of the weapons around him. If you have a great defense, you can make a run.
I mean, the college game is more like the NFL more now than ever before. It's about the quarterback, and the margins are smaller. The SEC used to win every year because they had 2 and 3 deep of 4 and 5-star guys. That doesn't happen anymore. The NIL and the portal changed everything. Now, the SEC teams are subjected to the same injury risk that everybody else is and the same attrition that everybody else is. And now, as the rosters are much more even, you got a bad game by your quarterback goes down. I mean, there was a time where, if Georgia lost their quarterback, they're still good enough to win. That isn't the case anymore. Same with Alabama. That is not the case anymore, and you've got to, your quarterback has to play well. You got to get a well-coached game. And like you said, defense still plays. The SEC doesn't dominate the line of scrimmage the way they used to. They don't have enough guys anymore.
So let's come up with a final call here on the national championship game then before we pivot to hoops in a couple of minutes and hand out our best bets, which may or may not be on this game as well. Ohio State laying 8.5. John, you said it's Ohio State or nothing. How high are you willing to go? Are you comfortable laying 8.5? Would you go even farther?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything under 10. Yeah, I mean, I think you get to 10, it starts to become less of a value proposition. But I mean, I don't think that the number will change that much. If it does come off 8, I think there's some chance it comes in a little bit with Notre Dame money, and I could see Ohio State coming down to 7.5. So at this point, I'm content to wait. But anything past 9.5, I would just kind of stay off and enjoy the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, what was it this week? I saw that. Look, Notre Dame's got a 10% pro betting advantage. I saw it earlier. The money was over 70%, and the pro betting was over 20% on Notre Dame's side. That's come down. Wow. It's come down more to 50-50 and 10% pro advantage. So I think it's starting to come down. It's coming to more to Ohio State's side. I still am on Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move by the Sharps, waiting to see the Notre Dame bettors throw money at the 9.5, watch it come down, get your point and a half, and then jump on it because I think if it does get, like you said, John, to that 7.5 on Ohio State, that'll be every last dime emptied out of every single Notre Dame wallet to get to that point.
And one last point I'd like to make, when it comes to these last games of the season, and I learned this last year, I think I might have talked about it on the show, but you will see sports books, certainly some sports books, make decisions on a point spread based on futures liabilities. So there may be a discrepancy from one sportsbook to another on 7.5, 8.5, 9, whatever. Somebody might post Ohio State 7.5, or God forbid, maybe even a 7, because their liabilities on Notre Dame are so vast, right? Yeah. As a champion, I'm sure most books probably have big liabilities on Notre Dame to win it. So I think you could see sportsbooks say, man, let's just make Ohio State as enticing as we possibly can to try to lay off some of this, Notre Dame liability.
That's a good call, John. It is BetQLU. We got hoops to talk about because there's more than a handful of massive games being played on Saturday around the country. We do that next, plus our best bets right here on BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker.
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
Sports handicapper Rob Brown.
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
Cycling all the top plays.
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
And one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2, 3. Oh!
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends, and it ends with absolute disaster.
But I'll tell you, that's fun, but the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this.
Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends, and it ends with absolute disaster.
But I'll tell you, that's fun, but the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this.
Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Let's get back to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
Live coast to coast on the BetQL network. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. Every Friday night and Saturday morning, we are here with you, getting you ready for all of the weekend's action. If you missed our preview of the national championship game, that's why we're available in podcast form as well. Inside your Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts, just search BetQLU, everything you need to keep an eye out for leading up to Notre Dame, Ohio State on Monday night. We'll get our best bets for this weekend. Again, might be NFL, might be national championship game, might even be hoops in just a few minutes, because there's plenty of college basketball games worth talking about this weekend. From Bama, Kentucky, a massive matchup Saturday at noon Eastern. Another one in the SEC, Auburn in Georgia. Purdue stays out west to visit Oregon after their fifth win in a row over Washington. A big one in the Big East, Creighton visiting Storrs against the Huskies. And the first one I had listed on the docket, John, number 10 Houston Cougars could be laying as many as 11 or 12 at UCF. Houston is, look, this is what they do. Defensively, they have been dominant again this year. They've held 12 opponents to 55 points or less, including their win Wednesday against West Virginia. 8 of their last 9 they have absolutely throttled. They've only let three opponents crack 70. Add to that, Jawan Roberts starting to come to life and hit some shots. This feels like the same thing we've seen from Houston over the last couple of years, where They practice absolutely carving you up on the defensive end and then slowly come to life offensively the farther we progress into spring.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, UCF feels like the exact kind of team that they're going to punish. I mean, they used to be in the same conference with them, in the AAC before they both left together at the same time for the Big 12. I watched a little bit of UCF over the last weekend. They covered a big number against Arizona, but Houston ain't Arizona, and I don't think Houston's really sweating a home court advantage at UCF. I mean, that's not really a basketball school at all. I mean, Johnny Dawkins is just kind of middling through things. And they have some guys on that team that I think Houston will be really happy to lock down. So I don't think it's going to be 10-11. I think it's going to be probably closer to 13.5, 14.5. But I think Houston wins with margin, mostly on the back of holding UCF to 45 points.
And that's the key. I mean, if you're going to take that number, I mean, you're going to have to get them to hold them under, 50 to 55. I mean, Houston's has been a fantastic team for how many years now? Ever since Kelvin got there, they've been they've controlled teams they should beat. They don't lose the teams necessarily that they should beat. It's when they're playing their weight class that they might slip up. So, yeah, I think Houston win. I mean, I think obviously Houston would win this game easily. I don't know where the number's going to be. If it's more than 12, I'd probably not take more than 12 on the road.
Guys, I mentioned the Big East matchup with Creighton at number 14, UConn. I keep waiting for UConn. It's like an old car when you step on the gas and something's up with the carburetor and it just kind of can't quite get going. That being said, in Liam McNeely's absence, Solo Ball has stepped up. He's averaging 13.5, shooting almost 44% from three. If this thing stays right around 2 possessions, say to 6 to 7 points, I like UConn to cover this one, especially with the home court advantage, John.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was on UConn the last 2 games. I was on them against Villanova, and sadly, Alex Caravan missed 2 free throws that, would have won them the game potentially. Certainly would have covered the number at worst. And then I backed them against Georgetown the next game, and they covered that number. They were up by as many as 22 maybe in that second half. So I've been watching the Huskies closely, and, they're missing Liam McNeely. There's no doubt about that, but you know what you're going to get with UConn's offense with Dan Hurley. Like, they're going to run really good stuff. Like, they're going to get pretty good looks for college basketball, and they're always going to be, live to score. And Creighton's has some guys, Kalkbrenner and Ashworth, who have been there for a while and they definitely have experience playing together and playing this UConn team. But I just think the athleticism is always what bothers them, and the length, and that's what UConn is just going to throw at them. And so I don't think Creighton is very good this year. I think they're just kind of okay. And I think at home, this is a spot where UConn gets up and handles business at 7.
Yeah, UConn's had their down streak, where they lost their 3 in a row. And then, obviously the loss to Villanova, a road game, tough environment to play in. I don't see Creighton, coming in there and winning this game. When they're playing at home, I'm probably going to take UConn just about every time they're at home. Sometimes it gets you in trouble, but if they're playing at home and they're not, and they have already hit their skid, I'm probably taking UConn.
All right, there's a trio of SEC games I want to touch on real quick before we get to our best bets. Bama at Kentucky. Bama coming off, would we call that their worst game of the season? Probably. 21 turnovers against Ole Miss. They averaged less than a point per possession, basically. They were not just sloppy, they were inefficient. And Kentucky at home, only laying a point, maybe 2, 1.5, whatever it may end up being by the time it closes. I think this is we've seen, John, the problem with Bama is they've got a great history under Nate Oates of winning matchups against AP-ranked opponents. But they've also got this history this year, more recent, forget the last few years, this year, of being very streaky with their sloppy play. They had a run back in mid-December where I think 5 out of 7 games they had 14 or more turnovers. When they get sloppy for a while. I don't know if they instantly turn it around after the loss to Ole Miss.
Yeah, this Kentucky team is freaking amazing, man. I don't know how much you guys have seen them, how much you guys have watched them, but I've watched them pretty closely. And I tell you what, man. I mean, they they run as good a stuff as anybody in college basketball. It's a breath of fresh air, because as you guys know, I mean, I was watching that Virginia SMU game last night. And it was painful. It was absolutely painful. It was like when people like complain about college basketball, right? Like that's the game they have in mind, and they're justified. Kentucky plays great basketball, man. They move the ball. That's on the court can shoot. And they're just not a team that I would fade right now. I mean, I know Bama is legitimate and they're coming off an L, but I just would have absolutely zero interest in getting in front of this Kentucky. And they go into Mississippi State when the game was 5-point underdogs. Obviously against Texas A&M. I know that was a Texas A&M team without Wade Taylor, but I mean, they're just handling business, man. And they're deep and they're big and they're old and they can shoot. Give me Kentucky as much as I'll kind of just I'm gonna pay to see it, mode with them. I'm probably just gonna pay to see it every time with them until further notice.
Dude, they have brought the fun back, man. They really have. It is. I mean, what against Florida? They put up like almost like 150 points per 100 possessions. That is obscene. It's obscene. Like Florida wins that. If Florida were to replay that game every time, because they put up like 139 points per 100 possessions, they beat every team in the country on that day except Kentucky. Like Kentucky was insane. And they are really a wild team. Their peak and their valley, they've got the most variance of any team probably in the sport. I really like Kentucky here, especially a home team. Only give it up one. I really love Kentucky.
Auburn at Georgia, laying double digits. No broom, no problem. Chaney Johnson has stepped up big for them. Another big man has stepped up for Ole Miss, Malik Dia, in that win over Alabama earlier this week. Had 19 boards. He has been massive inside since conference play started. I love Ole Miss getting three at Mississippi State. So those are some SEC looks as well. And we mentioned Purdue at Oregon. I really like Oregon. Purdue's still playing with their lineup over the last few weeks, trying to find the right mix. Floor spacing seems to be working for them, but I still think Oregon not laying more than a full possession at home. I like the Ducks. Let's get to our best bets before we wrap it up here, gentlemen, this week on BetQLU. It could be one of those college hoops games we just talked about, or another one. It could be the national championship game between Notre Dame and Ohio State. It could be a divisional round playoff game in the NFL. Where do you want to go, John Martin?
Okay, I'm gonna give you what I'm playing in NFL this weekend.
All right,
that's what we're gonna do. Kansas City Chiefs first half -4.5, still out there. You can find it. Gonna play that. Mixon's questionable in practice today. Huh? Uh-oh, that could be a problem. No practice against the rested Kansas City Chiefs. People will overblow the rust thing. These guys are two-time world champs. They probably needed the rest, okay? They're not going to forget how to throw the football and run the football, after a week or two, right? I think they're going to be fine. And I just think Houston was on its way to being blown out against the Chargers before just a fortuitous bounce changed that entire game. So I'll be on Chiefs -4.5. And then the number's a little different. I'd still play it maybe for a little less, but Eagles -6. I got 5.5, but I just think this Eagles team is head and shoulders better than everybody else not named Detroit in the NFC. And I just think their talent disparity shows through here. Rams on a tough trip, tough travel. And I think Jalen Hurts will look a lot better this week against a softer Rams defense than he looked against the Packers. Packers are great defense, and they did a great job on them. I don't think the Rams will be nearly as effective defensively against him.
Choppy?
All right, so, I mean, you can go a lot of ways here. I mean, I like Detroit in the first quarter over 6.5. I like Kansas City, Houston, under 7.5 first quarter, but let's go a little parlay action here.
Here we go.
Bills, Rams, money line pays 5.5 to 1. On the money line parlay, Bills,
I like
Rams.
that Rams look. I like that Rams look. I think
do it.
I think they're live. I'm going to stick with hoops. I mentioned Houston earlier. First, I'm maybe if you want to parlay a couple unders. Under in the national championship game. I like that look. I mentioned it earlier. Ohio State, Notre Dame. And I'm also going to go under on Houston, UCF. If that number's sitting in the upper 130s when it finally hits, we're going under on Houston, UCF. That thing could be all the way down at like 131, and I think I'd still take the under on that one. Houston going to UCF and dominating there. That is it for this week. We will have a national championship game to break down next week. More hoops as well as we continue to work our way through conference play, maybe even some NFL conference championship games. Plenty to get into. Don't forget to download us in podcast form inside your Odyssey app and rejoin us every single weekend. Wherever you get us, we are here for you alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack. This has been BetQLU presented by BetMGM.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker.
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
Sports handicapper Rob Brown.
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
Cycling all the top plays.
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
And one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2, 3. Oh!
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster.
But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. Now, come on, put it in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most